Well, thank you, and good morning, everyone. I want to start today by also thanking the London Chamber for hosting and RBC Place for welcoming us once again to this beautiful venue. To my colleagues on City Council, our senior leadership team, and the thousands of London employees who serve this community each and every day, thank you for your professionalism, your dedication, and your deep commitment to public service. I am proud every day to work along each and every one of you. And that dedication was on full display over the holidays when London experienced almost every kind of weather imaginable in the span of just a few days. While many gathered with family and friends, our city staff were out on our streets making sure that the city kept moving and the city was safe for everyone. Your service does not pause, and it certainly does not go unnoticed. And to our friends at London Hydro, especially the over 100 employees who were called in during the ice storm to get the power back on for thousands of Londoners. Thank you for your dedication to our city. Thank you for all that you do, especially keeping the power on during an event like this. A warm welcome also to the elected officials and Indigenous leaders representing areas across our region, and to our federal and provincial partners who have joined us today. Thank you for being here, and thank you for all that you do on behalf of your communities and your constituents. Quite simply, the London region cannot achieve its full potential without your support and partnership. And finally, I want to thank members of my family who join me today. My mom, my partner, and my daughter Ainsley, who I think many of you know in the room. I appreciate everything you do to support me, and of course for sharing this morning with me today. And to my staff, I want to thank you for writing a great speech that I'm not going to give today. Because when we talked about how I wanted to do this, you'll notice I don't have teleprompters this time. I basically have just a couple of intro notes. And I wanted to just actually talk a little bit off the cuff on some really important issues facing our city. And when we talk about issues, I'm not afraid to talk about the tough issues. So I'm going to start off talking today about property taxes. Municipal governments are in a really tough spot. For every tax dollar collected in this country, we collect just 9 cents, and yet we're responsible for 60% of the infrastructure. We really only have 3 main sources of revenue: property taxes, user fees, and government grants. But at the same time, we're a fast-growing city. We face tremendous costs, and we don't participate in the benefits of a fast-growing city. Economic growth, economic activity, wage appreciation, those revenues don't fill up municipal coffers. They fill up federal and provincial coffers. And so our partnership with the provincial and federal governments is critical to us being able to supply the critical services that Londoners count on. And often those revenues and those benefits don't line up perfectly. And cities face tremendous pressure on property taxes to try to keep just those basic services that Londoners and those who live in municipalities depend on each and every day. They have to address critical infrastructure that in some cases has not been invested in for decades. And what many cities do in those situations is they let their infrastructure crumble, or they don't invest in the services that Londoners or their municipalities might need. What did our municipal council do when we took office? We didn't do that. We took a really honest look at how to develop a strategic plan that was authentic and genuine, and looked at the challenges our city faced and put forward one that was clear, transparent, that delivered on the services Londoners need and dealt with the critical infrastructure we needed to invest in. What we saw when we did that is we were going to face, in the first year of our multi-year budget, about a 15% tax increase in just the first year. We worked really hard on that budget, and we brought that increase down to about 7.7% in 2024 and 6.6% in 2025. Still historically high levels of taxation. But what we did do is we didn't push things down the road. We invested in critical services, and we made record investments in libraries, transit, infrastructure, housing, and public safety. At the same time, we recognized that these historic levels of taxes were not sustainable for Londoners who are facing an affordability crisis. So we made smart decisions as a municipal council. We tackled debt and debt avoidance. And during this term of council and during the budgets that I've tabled as mayor, we have paid down or avoided issuing over $81.7 million of municipal debt. And for context, every $20 to $25 million of debt is about $2 to $3 million in principal and interest payments. And so by paying down that $87.1 million or avoiding issuing it in the first place, we're avoiding millions and millions of principal and interest payments that we don't have to pay, my mom doesn't have to pay, my daughter Ainsley won't have to pay in the future when she starts paying taxes, and her kids won't have to pay. At the same time, we recognize that there is this expectation that government can be more efficient. And when I first got elected as a city councillor in 2014, I pushed to bring forward a new service review program for the city. We were going to dig deep into every area, department by department, Lean Six Sigma, zero-based budgeting, program and governance reviews. And after a decade of service review, which started in 2016, we have avoided taxing to the tune of $323 million. We have found $323 million in savings that we did not have to go to the taxpayer for, while still maintaining and providing the same level of service and making the investments we needed to make. So now we're in a position by taking these two actions that while others across this province are seeing dramatic pressure on property taxes, we're one of the lowest tabled in the budget this year. We started at an estimated 6.4%. I stood on this stage and said, we're going to set a target of 5. We came in with a budget of 3.4. We got one step left in the process this spring, setting tax ratios and tax policy. And if we do that well, we may even be in the low 3s or even the upper 2s. Now, one of the things we invested in, and I want to say, when you invest dollars, if you're like me, you don't like opening your wallet and spending money, but if you know you get value for it, it's a little easier to do. Well, I stood up on this stage a couple years ago, and I said we were going to make a historic investment in public safety in this community, and that we were going to couple that with a historic level of accountability. So today is Accountability Day. What did you get for what you paid for the last 2 years? Well, over the past 2 years, we saw a 38% reduction in homicides, a 45% reduction in carjackings, a 25% reduction in break-and-enters, a 64% reduction in motor vehicle thefts. And while we provided all of that service, we saw a 70% decline in service complaints against the London Police Service. When you call the police, they're coming faster now, faster than they have before. And Priority 1 calls are now their fastest level in recent years, from just over 10 minutes down to just over 9. And Priority 3 calls, we've made significant gains. Those non-emergency calls where you still expect someone to come have improved by 50%, from over 80 hours now down to 40. And we know there's still more work to do, and that work is coming. And on traffic enforcement, and my colleagues will tell you, often we get calls in about driving around the city. We have the highest level of traffic enforcement that we've had in the last 6 years. And we've seen a 50% reduction in motor vehicle fatalities during that time. So when I think about my kids, and it kind of terrifies me, going out and driving on our streets, or even going to school, the fact that we've made our city streets safer is something that's really important personally to me. At the same time, we said we were going to do policing differently. We put more people out on the streets. We have more patrols in our downtown. The Foot Patrol office opened. But we didn't just put officers on the street. We paired them with public health nurses and mental health workers. And those public health nurses are out there providing wound care, overdose management, and immediate support to those people on the streets who need it. It isn't just about policing, it's about getting people the care they need at that point in contact. And the Chief and I have said very clearly, on open-air drug use, it's unacceptable in our city. We developed a new open-air drug strategy. And in the first phase of that strategy, between April and August last year, there were 2,911 calls for service, 1,350 police reports, almost 1,300 seizures of drugs and paraphernalia. But at the same time, with compassion, there were 760 referrals to services that people needed to get help. That's the kind of way we're doing policing now in this city. And that's the kind of thing that your investment has allowed us to do. But we recognize with violent and repeat offenders, if we're charging them, sending them to the courts, and they get out on bail and they commit more crimes, that doesn't help the situation. And so we joined police boards, the Association of Chief of Police, municipalities, and of course the mayor's groups I'm involved in. We joined together to advocate to the federal government for meaningful bail reform. And that has been delivered upon, with the federal government tabling legislation and putting forward changes that will now put the onus for those who are violent and repeat offenders to have to prove to the courts why they should be granted bail, rather than the other way around, where the Crown attorneys had to say why they should be kept on bail. I can honestly say, after 2 years, because of these initiatives and because of the actions taken, our city is safer than it was just a few years ago. And speaking of safety, the other critical service that you call upon, Middlesex London Paramedic Service, has done some phenomenal work. Yeah, I knew they were going to clap. You've done some phenomenal work. 2 amazing programs that have been launched on our streets: the Rapid Response Unit and Community Paramedicine. Seeking special permission from the provincial government, they're able to deploy not land ambulances, but paramedics out into the community faster, triaging individuals, treating them, and not necessarily having to take them to the emergency room, freeing up critical capacity at our hospitals. And while they did that, something pretty amazing happened. I got a text from Health Minister Jones congratulating our city on being the first Canadian city to deploy an all-Canadian-made ambulance on our streets. That's pretty amazing. When we yes, yeah. When we think about Buy Canadian and we encourage that, municipal governments can be part of that solution as well, and we'll continue to do that. Now, the other thing you've heard me talk about up here on this stage a lot is housing affordability, housing development. And in my campaign in 2022, I pledged to build 50,000 new homes in London over a 10-year period. That following February of 2023, our council adopted a pledge to the provincial government to build 57,000 new homes by 2031. And I know Minister Flack is here today. He's probably here to check up on how we're doing. But Minister Flack is here today, and let me tell you, Minister, last year in 2025, our council approved permissions for 17,000 new homes. And that's on top of the 23,000 we authorized the year before in 2024. And with almost 1 year to go in this term, this council has already permitted approvals for 51,000 new homes in this city. Thank you. But we recognize that permissions aren't places to live. So we worked hard to see if we could turn those permissions into actual permits and buildings. And I'm proud to say that last year, we issued a record 5,462 new residential permits, which is 35% above our previous historical high. We have never issued more permits in this city, and the value of those permits reached $2.7 billion in construction value, breaking our 2024 record by $500 million. There is confidence in this city. People are choosing to spend their money here, and they're choosing to build here. And when we build, we have never built more inward and upward than we ever have before. Respecting our climate pledge initiatives and our climate commitments, I remember when we passed the London Plan, we set an ambitious target of 45% intensification for all builds. And that felt like a stretch goal at the time. We even talked about not putting the number at 45%. But in 2025, we not only met the London Plan target, we blew right through it, reaching a record intensification rate of 54%. You can clap for that. That means we're taking advantage of existing infrastructure. We're building smarter. We're using those water and sewer capacities, and we're saving you dollars, and we're providing homes for people in this city. So while other cities are struggling to get housing built and housing in the ground, you're probably asking, how did we do this? How did London, Ontario buck the trend and actually get housing done in 2025? Well, we developed really smart incentive programs. And we tried new things, and not all of them worked out. And we adjusted some of them because we were honest with our programs to say we were going to try to make incentive programs that actually incentivized building. You heard me on this stage talk about the Office to Residential Conversion Program. And that's been a great success. The results, 190 new residential units are approved and underway where vacant office space once stood. And 149 of those are right here in the downtown core of our city. We recognize that people might want to bring their parents and live with them. And so additional residential units is something we had to be permissive on. Whether you want to build an additional unit in your house or you want to build a new freestanding structure out back, we enabled that. We legalized it. And we saw more than 1,100 ARUs approved in our city. We developed transit-oriented grants for new residential development along our rapid transit routes. And we saw over 660 new units approved through that program. On affordable housing, on affordable housing, we developed the Dollars for Doors program for affordable and highly supportive housing. And last year, 6 developments were approved, representing 548 units, 263 of those affordable and 115 supportive housing, just last year. And more are coming, more on the way, but we've already exceeded our target in the roadmap to 3,000 of 300 supportive units. We brought back the affordable homeownership program with $25,000 forgivable down payment loans for current renters, so that they might have the opportunity to get into homeownership for the first time. The results, 43 applications have been approved and over 900,000 in loans have been committed. And we're getting national attention now. Our success is getting noticed. Recently, the Globe and Mail ranked us #1 in the country for rental housing affordability. And if you go out there into the rental market, you see rates starting to come down. And it's not uncommon to see first and last month's rent now included, something unheard of just a few years ago. But nowhere is it more important to build than in our downtown core. It's the heart of our city. And as I just spoke about office residential conversions, I want you to know of those 190 units we approved, 40% of the downtown units are deeply affordable. And in case you wonder what 180,000 square feet of vacant commercial office space looks like, that's about 6 times the size of this room. 6 times the size of this room in office space that was sitting vacant, sometimes for upwards of 6, 8, maybe even 10 years. And now that vacant office space is being turned into homes for people to live right here in the core of our city. And the private sector is getting behind us as well. Almost 700 new residential units were built in 2025 from private developers in the downtown core. And this term of council, we're approaching 1,500 new units created in the downtown. That's 1,500 units, not bedrooms, units, representing thousands of new people living right here in the core of our city. And we know when you get people to live in the core, they walk out their front doors, then they support businesses. They go to the market, they go to restaurants, they shop in our downtown. And although we've lost some businesses, we've gained more. And there's been a net gain of 30 new businesses in the downtown opened in the past 3 years. And I want to recognize, and there's a lot of people who do a lot of work on this, that downtown is the cultural hub of our city. It's where festivals, concerts, and entertainment collide. And it is a sector that is thriving. And I want to give one example, the Grand Theatre. Last year, the Grand Theatre sold a record number of subscriptions, 6,000. 6,000 subscriptions from people who've decided they want to go and enjoy phenomenal theater right here in our downtown core. What does that actually mean? That means they sold 100,000 individual tickets to theater in our city. 100,000 people coming downtown, enjoying great theater, but also visiting restaurants and supporting local businesses and experiencing this amazing part of our city. And that's just the beginning. We're on the verge of receiving the information on a new downtown plan. But in the meantime, we recognize we've got to continue to keep the momentum going, and we initiated a series of quick start actions, including bringing back permanent 2-hour free parking on downtown streets. And I don't know where you parked today. Yeah. They parked here, yeah. And in case you're wondering how to access that, you use the Honk mobile app, and when you get to the payment, you punch in the word CORE. That's a promo code. With all that building and all that development, we know infrastructure is critical. And I talked about this off the top. If you don't invest in the city's infrastructure, if you let it crumble, it only catches up with you down the road and it's only more expensive to fix. Well, this council didn't do that. We invested $310 million of infrastructure spending this year, reaching almost $1 billion over this term of council. And the type of infrastructure we're building is across the board. On roads, we completed the Adelaide Street underpass. And if you're one of the 26,000 people a day who now gets to drive under a train rather than getting stopped at it, you know how important this critical infrastructure is. But more importantly, that is a critical emergency services corridor. That means land ambulances, police, and fire are not being stopped or finding another way around a train. They're getting to your call quicker. That's what investing in infrastructure does. But infrastructure is also municipal parks. And when I ran for office, I said we were going to invest above and beyond our Parks and Rec Master Plan. And council supported the creation of a neighborhood parks improvement fund, and we are now upgrading parks across the city above and beyond what we normally would have. 23 have been completed, and there were 2,500 Londoners who came out to celebrate those local investments in their community. Infrastructure spending doesn't have to be in the ground or in the downtown or on our streets. It could be right in your neighborhood, improving great services that you and your families can enjoy. And I have to talk about sewer capacity. It's not the sexiest topic, but if you're doing all this housing, one of the things that we are challenged with is making sure that we have the capacity to continue to build these homes. And so I want to thank Minister Flack and the Premier and his government for helping us invest in the downtown Thames siphon, a project that will balance loads between existing sewer capacities and open up development for 17,000 new homes in the downtown core. And for those who clapped about the traffic, we've done that project without closing or blocking off streets. So one of the few. And as the City of London, and I know that there are other regional mayors and wardens and councillors here, Mayor Holder and I last term brought forward a motion to council to recognize London as a regional transportation hub. We recognize that we are the gateway to the city or to the world, not just for Londoners, but for those who live in the surrounding communities. And so in respecting that regional mobility hub, we developed a new master mobility plan which touched all modes of transportation across our city. So whether you drive, take rapid transit, conventional transit, cycle, or walk, the master mobility plan will set out our infrastructure spending from a mobility perspective for the next 25 years. And we are well positioned now to take advantage of federal and provincial programs on transportation infrastructure because we have a plan in place that is approved and ready to go. We recognize too that we need to invest in community transit between our cities. And we supported initiatives in partnership with the counties around us to support inter-community transit service in our budgets and theirs in partnership again with the provincial government. And I think we can all recognize that one of the things that we continue to need in our city is better rail connections. I want to first commend Via Rail for making substantial investments in the station and platforms here at the London station. But those station and platforms are only good as the frequency and reliability of the rail that comes to them. And so we have embarked on an aggressive new advocacy campaign, not just by ourselves, but in regional partnerships. And I recently traveled with 3 area wardens and municipal councillors to the Roma conference to meet with provincial officials and prepare our advocacy federally. Because as the federal government dreams of nation-building projects and better transportation connections across this country, we cannot let Southwestern Ontario be left behind for better rail service. And as we connect people across the city, I want to turn to the economy. Recognized as a UNESCO city, creativity is an economic driver in our city. And I already talked about the Grand Theatre, but I want to tell you, just last year, Film London achieved something pretty amazing. They generated over $1 million of revenue and $200,000 in hotel stays right here in our city. The Children's Museum, if you've read the news lately, had their best year ever at their new location. 250,000 people visited the Children's Museum since they went to that new location last year. And 80,000 of them were tourists to our city coming here and spending their dollars here, making an economic injection into this economy. And on tourism, we recently passed the $1 billion per year mark. I don't think we often think about ourselves as a place where people come for tourism, but $1 billion a year says otherwise. We have amazing features in this city, and people are coming here to see and enjoy them from around the country. Our tech sector continues to be one of the fastest growing in Canada, and we've reached number 4 on the Next 25 in North America list with a sector growth rate of 54%. And we know too, industrial development is critically important to good paying jobs in our city. That's why Council updated our industrial land development strategy and positioned ourselves well for the province and federal governments who are onshoring and securing Canadian supply chains. We've become an agri-food powerhouse here in our city. Places like Andriana Pasta building their first factory outside of Italy, right here in London, to access the North American market. I don't know if maybe they're here, or they just really like pasta. But there is a new industrial partner here in the room, Huffman Industries. They purchased 5 acres in one of our industrial parks and built a new 30,000 square foot facility and created 25 jobs here in our city. Thanks for being here today. And thanks to the LADC, I get to announce a new industrial partner that you haven't heard of yet. M Park Spray Tech is going to build a new 200,000 square foot facility here in our city and our industrial parks, creating over 150 new great paying jobs in our city. Thanks to them for their investment and confidence in this part of our country. And they're joined by all of the existing manufacturers and those who have made investments before them. And as the federal government talks about increased defense spending, I have to mention General Dynamics and the 1,800 employees and the massive supply chain that they have here in our city and across Ontario. We're well positioned to take advantage of that federal government spending right here in our city. And as we create all of these jobs, we know we need job seekers to fill those positions. And the LADC recently let me know that their job portal has now received over 100,000 visits per month, showing an interest from people in London and beyond who want to come here and work in all of these jobs that are being created. Now, one of the things I want to talk to you about today is the thing that I talked about at my first State of the City, and it was the first topic I addressed. And I was a little bit different because often these speeches are about all the things I've talked about: infrastructure, investments, industrial announcements. But homelessness continues to be one of the biggest challenges we face as a city. When I ran, I made a commitment, because I went back and looked at my platform recently, to build 200 units of supportive housing. And we found that we needed more than that. And this council has approved over 400 units of supportive housing so far. And supportive housing, places like House of Hope and Thompson Road, help people transform their lives, help them find pathways to a better future. And not only that, it helps the rest of the community because it takes pressure off of critical emergency services. And for people who have gone through those supportive housing programs, we see an 83% reduction in emergency room visits. And remember, an emergency room visit is about $1,400. We also see a 61% reduction in inpatient stays at hospitals and a 63% reduction in days in custody. When you give people the proper supports, it not only transforms their lives, it benefits the whole community. And in fact, there's one individual in our supportive housing who spent 10 years outside, 10 years living outside. And during one of those years, he visited the ER 221 times in 1 year. Since he's been in supportive housing, he's reduced that demand by 96% to just 9 visits. That's helping people. That's transforming someone's life. And that's taking pressure off of critical services. We built 2 hubs in this city, and Atlosa and YOU have helped over 150 people at those locations. And with those hubs, we inspired a province-wide program. And again, I want to commend the provincial government for creating a heart hub system, a network of hubs across this province approaching 30. We have one here in London, but when that application went out, there were over 90 communities interested in hosting a heart hub. We know that people want to host services for residents who need their help right there in communities across this province. And although we can do a lot in the City of London to help those in need, we cannot do it all. We require a provincial-wide and national strategy to make progress on this. And I want to talk about progress. Progress is really hard to see. I don't know how you came here today. Depending how you did, probably saw someone living on the streets, whether it's on Dundas Place, in the doorway of a business, in a municipal park, in Old East Village. You probably saw someone outside and thought, why haven't we made any progress? Progress is hard to see. I'm going to help you see what we've done today. If you're at an odd numbered table, so just check your table number. If you're at an odd numbered table, I want you to stand up. Odd numbered tables. Everybody at an odd numbered table. I want you to look around. There are 600 people standing right now. 600 people represents the number of people that if you look on our streets, you don't see anymore because we help them find stable, secure housing. They're not in a park. They're not in the doorway of a business. They're not on the streets of downtown or Old East Village. They're in a home now, often with proper supports. If we're gonna make progress and we're gonna help people, these are the people you can't see on the streets. This is the progress you can't see because they're not out there anymore. It was cold last night. All of these people standing didn't have to find shelter, didn't need an emergency warming center. I want you to stay standing because I want to tell you something even more amazing. These 600 people are just the people we helped in 2025. I want everyone else in the room to stand up now. Every single person at every single table. And if you're at the back, because there aren't enough people in the room for this number, stand up too. Since I stood on this stage, since we got that $25 million donation, since we said we were going to be a city to act and do something to help the most vulnerable in our city, we have helped almost 1,500 people leave the streets of our city and find stable, secure housing with the proper supports. That's what we've done as a community. That's the progress we've made. That's how we've shown that we're a compassionate community. You're not out on the streets tonight searching for a warm place to stay. You are in stable, secure housing, and that's the difference we've made over the past 3 years. You can sit down now. What does that actually mean? That means we helped and housed about 41 people a month. 41 people a month every month for the past 3 years. Our staff, our partners, those doing outreach, those, in this working every day, have worked tirelessly, and we've put programs in place and we've made progress. And I will admit that progress is hard to see because homelessness has risen by 25% across the province. Now, the work we've done has bucked that trend. It's gone up 19% in London. But despite the fact that we've helped 1,500 people in our city, we still see more people falling into homelessness. And so I don't say it's time to celebrate. I do celebrate transforming the lives of those 1,500 people, but we got more people to help. And there is more to come. This week, people will move into the new micro-modular shelter, and 70 more individuals will find a place to stay that isn't the streets of London starting this week. And that program isn't even permanent housing. It's not even housing with supports. It's a new shelter. It's an emergency situation and we funded it for 2 years. But we're making permanent spaces as well. And Cove's Landing is going to open next month. 50 supportive housing spaces. And this is that space I told you about when I said the developers came together and bought a long-term care home, partnered with Indewell, and now 50 more spaces are going to open next month. And on the heels of that, speaking of Indewell, their work at Village Soho is about to open another 138 supportive housing units over the next year. And that's not even including all of the other work of the Village Soho Alliance with affordable units, market rate units, and deeply affordable units, RGI units. That's the kind of work we've been doing. And it's difficult work because, again, we can celebrate all those things, but there's still more to do. So what do we have ahead? Before I wrap up, I want to touch on a couple of things that you can expect coming from Council this year. We're going to see Legacy Village, that transformative development at Oxford and Highbury, start to deliver the first buildings of 8,000 new residential units, which is the largest development in East London and largest investment in East London we've seen in our history. It's going to have 15,000 people living in a brand new community in that part of the city. We're building upward. We're utilizing our rapid transit routes. We're utilizing infrastructure. We're furthering our intensification and meeting our climate goals. As I said, you'll see a new downtown master plan and new actions that we'll continue to take to support and revitalize this really critical part of our city. You'll see the audit come back of our London transit operations with recommendations for governance and future progress on transit. And on the industrial side of things, you'll see the opening of Phase 5 of our Innovation Park. And we'll accommodate new employers and new opportunities and create new jobs for Londoners with those new industrial lands that we're able to service and provide. And you'll see continued and robust ongoing advocacy with the provincial and federal governments to continue to partnership all three levels of government on issues of homelessness, housing, affordability, infrastructure, and public safety. And that work doesn't wait. I'll travel to Ottawa next week as chair of the 23 largest cities in this country, and we'll meet with federal officials and we'll continue working on those things. And then we'll go to AMO, and then we'll go to FCM, and we'll continue to partner with our federal and provincial partners to continue to make gains and invest in projects like I mentioned today. And we're only halfway through the operational plan for the London Police Service. So for all that progress and all that value you got, you're going to see more officers and more investments and better response times and better numbers in the next 2 years of that plan. And I think I've stood up here every year and made an announcement. And now that I'm at the end of the speech, you're probably thinking, is there going to be one? Well, there is. So I have an announcement to make today. Earlier this week, I issued a strong mayor direction to our staff to bring forward a new program to council for council's review and approval. A new affordable home ownership program. We've made tremendous gains on rental housing. We've been recognized for those. We see rents coming down. We see first and last month's rent included. But we continue to lag on home ownership. The opportunities that Ainsley have to own a home aren't the same as I had. It's certainly not the same as my mom. And if we're going to make progress on that, we're going to have to try something new and something different. And we'll see how it works, and we might have to make adjustments to it. But what we're going to do is we're going to partner with the building community, and we're going to pay the development charges for new homeowners. 60% by the city, 40% by the building community. And I want to thank the London Home Builders Association for partnering on this and putting their dollars on the table. We're going to fund this with some dollars we got from the federal and provincial governments, and we're going to target affordability. So we're going to have this program only apply to those new homes that are below the average selling price in the city. So if you can build a home below those levels, the building community and the City of London will partner with you and will pay those development charges fees for you for the duration and for the conclusion of 2026. And we'll see how it goes. And Minister, if it works out really well, we're probably going to ask you for a bunch of money to continue it into 2027. So, well, let me say, I really always appreciate your time and the discussions we can have today. I know I did things a little bit differently, but I want to conclude by saying that, while we're not always loud or dramatic about them, the achievements that we've made as a city are extremely impactful. We're investing in the future. We're improving services. We're transforming the lives of our most vulnerable, and frankly, we're saving lives in this city. In this job, I see people showing up day after day to do the kind of work that keeps the city moving forward. I see entrepreneurs who choose to build and grow their businesses right here, neighbors who look out for one another, and volunteers who step up and help when it's needed the most. And I have never been more proud to call London my home. But today, I want to ask for your help. Don't turn away from our challenges. Let's face them with determination. Through our 200-year history, we have proven that when we show up for this community together, there is nothing that we cannot achieve. So let's share that sense of ownership that is London, Ontario. It fuels our progress, it strengthens our resolve, and it shapes a future that we can be honored to pass to the next generation. Thank you very much.